If you saw episode 1, then you already know the headline. San Diego FC has publicly informed Chucky Lozano that he will not be a part of sporting plans moving into the 2026 season and beyond. But since then, things have escalated. And today, we're getting into the real problems. What happens when that player doesn't want to leave the club? What happens when the coach is doubling down that he will not play this season? And we get to find out just how ruthless the MLS salary rules really are. This is episode 2 in the crazy saga that is San Diego FC versus Chucky Lozano. Hope you're buckled in, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to get messy. San Diego FC sporting director Tyler Heaps and head coach Mikey Varas have all confirmed that Lozano will not be a part of the club plans moving forward, despite being under contract until 2028. In a quote directly from Tyler Heaps, "We have communicated to Irving and his representation that he will not be a part of sporting plans moving forward." And since episode 1, Mikey Varas has not doubled down. You can even say triple down, quadruple down, because he's gone on record not once, not twice, but numerous times stating that he will not play for San Diego FC this season. Mikey Varas would go on to say, with all respect for the player that he is, ultimately, it just is not the right fit. No one is bigger than the club. No one is bigger than the city. Varas even reported to Spanish media, "We don't fit together." Now, the crazy thing about Chucky is there's a lot of rumors going around, but he has not actually gone on record saying, "I refuse to leave."
But that does not stop journalists from talking for him. Fabrizio Romano has gone on Twitter saying Irving Lozano does not plan nor want to leave San Diego in this window, as he intends to stay at the club this season. Now that could mean many things, and when Mr. Football talks, the world listens.
He has not closed the door on future opportunities, including a possible legal Mexico run. That's definitely one option on the board. There's been other options on the board, such as him leaving for teams like Atlanta United, or even heading to somewhere in Spain with teams like Celta Vigo and others speaking about him. And in a quote from Chucky Lozano, "I am not closing the door on anyone. Playing for Chivas or America would be a beautiful experience." So, where are we now? It's the question definitely is begging to be asked. The club says he's not playing. The coach says he doesn't fit. The player has not asked for the out. He's still training at the facility. The players around him know that he's not a part of the plans and have accepted that and moved on. But again, the ultimate reality is this contract is good through 2028. And with the window wide open and not a lot of chatter happening, there's a lot of implications that's going on. It's not a transfer situation. We're bit more of a standoff at this point. So, in reality, there's 4 outcomes for this. He can either stay under contract and just doesn't play, be loaned out to another club, have a buyout or a mutual termination, or one very unlikely piece being an MLS trade. I have the likelihoods at him staying on a contract and just sitting the bench, or not even being a part of the squad going into a week-to-week action, out of about 45%. The possibility of him being loaned to another club, 25%. Now, that would come with a lot of questions. Who's going to take on the majority of the money? How is it going to work? Is there a option to buy or a obligation to buy along with this loan? And then, of course, there is always the mutual termination, the buying out of his contract, having the player take a lesser fee, have his contract bought out through the remainder of it extension, or existence, I should say, and then he's free to go sign with whomever, wherever, and go from there. And then the final one, and the reason why I say this is one that's a little bit more on the more unlikely side, is an MLS trade. The reason I say an MLS trade is going to be difficult is because of his salary cap. Chucky Lozano is, I believe, the 4th highest paid player in the MLS. That does not bode well for teams in the MLS, considering most of them, once they get their 3rd DP signing, their extent has already been pushed. Their market is already tapped. Their money, their allocated money has already been extra allocated, if you will. So it's a little more difficult. Truth be told, like I said, obviously off the percentages, the most likely outcome is he just stays hanging out in San Diego. Maybe we are able to get rid of him in the summer if we're not able to get rid of him during this winter transfer window. Now I want to take a look at the MLS salary cap and the reality of the situation. This is where the MLS rules make the situation extensively painful for San Diego FC. Now, remember, Chucky Lozano is our first designated signing, so he falls under the designated player rules. Which means his full salary does not hit the cap. We pocket a lot of, it comes a lot out of pocket, but his DP slot and budget charges are taken care of. So, even if he never plays another minute for San Diego FC, he stays locked in his DP spot. His salary charge still counts, and San Diego does not get the relief because he's benched. And by relief, there is a bit of a tax break, or I should say a cap break, a money relief, if you will, provided by the MLS to have your DPs out there and playing. And the reason is for that is because that designated player is meant to be the guy, the eyes on, the Messis, if you will. The hey, look at me, the David Beckhams. The DP rule is actually based off of David Beckham. They really should call it the DB rule, but it is what it is. Because that's what it was. It was the, hey, eyes on this guy. Hey, your team has the big star. This is why we're going to pay him the big money. And that big guy, as long as he's out there, that big name player, as long as he's out there, will give you a little cut off of his salary. He doesn't play, you get nothing. So, there are no league penalties for this, thank goodness. However, it does hurt the squad as a whole. Less ways to improve the squad. Less allocated money, obviously, and then, of course, less roster flexibility. He takes a roster spot. Maybe you want to sign a DP. You're not able to because he's there. Maybe he's taking up a position that you would want to fill. There's a lot of things that need to be accounted for. Now, why this hurts the team if it's not already starting to sound obvious. In the MLS, DP slots are gold, and that, again, is being nice. If one is tied up in a non-playing contract, it limits the mid-season reinforcements because, again, money. You then have to emphasize the U22 system, which we're kind of already doing, which I think is a way that they've already started to work around Chucky. They've talked about guys that they brought in that have already kind of filled, like they filled that void for Chucky. Guys like a Lewis Morgan, Amal Pellegrino being re-signed feels like that was the option. Like once we figured out that chemistry could come from a different version of a left winger than a Chucky Lozano, they kind of figured maybe this is who we can go with. And then, of course, again, a roster spot is a roster spot. Heaven forbid injuries happen, and they do in this sport. You're limited in your depth moves. It's a real cost for the club. And then again, of course, you have to talk about the money. You have to talk about what it's going to cost to keep him on the books and on the bench. And honestly, it's kind of not fair. It's kind of not fair. There's no longer whether the talented Chucky Lozano is playing or not for San Diego FC. It is known. It is now stamped into the record books, etched into the skies, if you will. He's not playing. You can wear your number 11s in the stands, but you're not going to see number 11 on the pitch. And at this point, this is about leverage. And the leverage is he doesn't want to leave. He knows he's getting his time, his minutes, his prime. He knows he's getting his recognition and what he needs to be able to fulfill the necessity. I keep wanting to use big words in this. He wants to be able to go and be a part of the Mexican international team. He wants to get an international spot, compete in the World Cup. That's what every big prime player is waiting for. They need this opportunity, him especially. Now, the crazy thing is San Diego FC is betting that their system will work without him, and it kind of showed that it did, but it also showed flaws. A lot of fans, you could say, would go as far as saying that he was needed in those playoff runs. He needed to start in those playoff runs because his type of energy, his type of play was a different breed for us, was a different brand of play for us. Pellegrino on the pitch wasn't bad, but it also wasn't great. It wasn't the energy that we're used to. Yes, he's pacey. Yes, he can shoot him when he needs to. Yes, he has a great history playing in the Europes, playing against some of the best European teams, playing in the Champions League in the Europa League. But Chucky Lozano brought a different dynamic to our left side. A guy who was not afraid to take on the defender in front of him, not afraid to cut through the middle and take on a midfielder or even a center back. And not afraid to make those awkward and crisp passes to hope to get an assist to add to the goal contribution. And then, of course, San Diego FC are betting that eventually he will accept a move. Again, whether it is to Liga Mexico, whether it is to La Liga in Spain, whether he goes to the Bundesliga, whether he goes back to PSV, whether he goes to Italy, maybe he goes to the Premier League. Maybe Ryan and Matt, I'm sorry, Ryan and the other, Rob and Ryan, there you go, of Wrexham. I'm stumbling and bumbling because I'm thinking of all the possibilities if he can go. Maybe those guys need him over there. Maybe they need a talented winger who's willing to make a lot of bread, or not too much bread, even though he is expensive, but playing at the championship level. Maybe he's of that caliber. Maybe he feels that caliber. And speaking of the things he feels, he himself is betting that his contract will simply protect him. That at some point, the time that he spends just sitting there on ice, sitting there looking like that shiny toy, that car that you're not allowed to touch, your dad's fast car or something like that, you know what I mean? Your dad has that car when you're growing up and you're like, one of these days I'm going to be able to drive that. Or maybe it was an old truck, beat up or nice, whatever it was, just the thing that you weren't allowed to touch. Maybe he becomes that enticing just sitting in the locker room that this front office eventually caves, puts him on the pitch. That is what Chucky is banking on. Someone blinks, or at this point, everyone's going to pay. And by everyone, I'm not just talking about the club. I'm talking about the fans. I've already spoken about how big of a loss he is. As far as chemistry and teamwork, yeah, maybe he can be replaced. As far as star recognition and fan following, it's going to hurt, whether we want to like it or not. So, that's all I got for you guys. This was the part 2 to the crazy chaos of San Diego FC versus Chucky Lozano. Do you think San Diego should hold their ground? Or do you figure out that they need to move on, no matter the cost? Do you buy him out? Do you loan him and eat the bread? Do you just get him out of your locker room for the sake of getting him out of your locker room? Let me know in the comments below. Episode 3 is coming, and it may not be about Chucky Lozano and what's going on. It may be a whole roster breakdown because a lot of moves have been made, and I think Chucky Lozano's replacement has already been signed. And I'll let you know all about it in the third one. So we'll see y'all in the next one. We'll catch y'all around the bend.